Erwin Rommel steps onto African soil around noon on February 12th and wastes no time. He wants to get a clear picture of the situation. Remember, at this point, Rommel knows nothing about the British plans. As far as he knows, an advance on Tripoli could be happening at that very moment. One of the first things Rommel learns is that the local Italian command has gone through some personnel changes. Marshal Rodolfo Graziani, who had overseen the Italian disaster in North Africa in recent weeks, has stepped down. Now the man in charge, and technically Rommel's superior, is Graziani's former chief of staff, Italo Garibaldi. The Italian general is doubtful about Rommel, his own morale badly shaken by the huge military defeats. Rommel writes, "Morale was as low as it could be in all military circles in Tripoli. Most of the Italian officers had already packed their bags and were hoping for a quick return trip to Italy." All of this makes one thing clear to Rommel, and he makes a decision. "I had already decided, in view of the tension of the situation and the slowness of the Italian command, to go beyond my instructions to limit myself to a reconnaissance and to take command at the front into my own hands as soon as possible, at the latest after the arrival of the first German troops." So he takes to the skies to see what he is working with and to find out whether a defense at the Gulf of Sirte is really possible. At his side sits Colonel Schmundt, the two of them racing across the blue desert sky in their Heinkel 111. As the land spreads out below him, Rommel does gain some understanding. Between Homs and Tarhuna, two towns on either side of the direct approach to Tripoli, both only about 100 kilometers from the Libyan capital, hilly mountains fill the landscape. Rommel notes that this is not very good ground for motorized forces. Soon, however, that changes between Homs and Misurata. A flat plain with no plants, ravines, or other obstacles stretches far and wide. A plain that reaches all the way to Sirte, the chosen point for defense. What Rommel has seen does not change his plans. It strengthens his decision: protect Sirte and both sides of the coastal road. The only suitable line of movement for any attacking or defending force is the path Rommel has chosen. The next day, he is ready to give the first orders and begin the defense of Tripoli for real. His chosen strategy can be described in 5 words. The best defense is offense. Rommel wants to show the British that German troops are present as soon as possible. He believes that as soon as the British know they are there, they will stop advancing farther. I mean, if the British expect no resistance on their way to Tripoli, why would they stop? The fastest and easiest way to stop that advances with planes. But the detachment of Fliegerkorps meant to serve with Rommel in Africa has not arrived yet, and neither have the German ground troops. So, for the moment, Rommel looks at the Italian troops he has available. Technically, the orders from Rome and Berlin are clear. Rommel is to command any and all Italian motorized units. Yet, as historian Barry Pitt writes, as Rommel was both broad in his reading of the word motorized and forceful in argument, the Italian 10th Corps, made up of the Brescia and Pavia divisions, was soon moving forward. Besides the 10th Corps, there is also a truly motorized division, the 132nd Armored Division, or the Ariete Division, right? But much like the Commonwealth troops staying in North Africa, Rommel's Italian forces are not exactly first-rate either. Morale is one problem, though Rommel might be able to improve that somewhat through basic charisma. But that is not all. The 10th Corps does not have much artillery, and while Ariete has about 120 tanks, there is a problem with those tanks. As Rommel observes, they are tanks of completely outdated design, far too light, and had once been used to chase natives around Abyssinia. But all is not lost. Aside from the machinery, the Ariete Division is efficient, well-organized, and well-trained. Rommel works with what he has, so on the 13th, he orders the 10th Corps forward to the Sirte-Buerat area. Ariete is to follow, taking up a defensive position west of Buerat. Aware of the already shaky logistics situation, Rommel knows it will take a while before these troops reach their destination. If the British push forward in these days, the only roadblock they would meet is a force about the size of a regiment already stationed at Sirte. Rommel does not think they have a chance against the British. This meant the only force we had immediately available with which to hold up the enemy, apart from the weak Italian garrison at Sirte, was the German Luftwaffe. Then, on February 14th, the first elements of the 5th Light Division arrive at the port of Tripoli. By around 6:30 p.m., Reconnaissance Battalion 3 and the 39th Panzerjäger Anti-Tank Battalion are waiting to unload. Rommel knows speed is extremely important, so unloading goes on through the night by lamplight, making it a very open invitation to the RAF to destroy the German help for the Italians before it has even reached land. As Rommel says, the danger of enemy air attack simply had to be accepted. Yet that night, from the 14th to the 15th, the skies stay quiet and 6,000 tons of cargo are unloaded, a new record for the port of Tripoli, or at least according to Rommel. After receiving their tropical gear, the Germans hold a quick parade through the town. For one thing, to give British spies something to talk about, but also to raise morale. It works. As Rommel says, they radiated complete confidence in victory, and the change in atmosphere did not go unnoticed in Tripoli. Then it is time for orders. Both units are to push east at once, also taking up positions at Sirte. The 3rd Reconnaissance Battalion under Baron von Wechmar reaches Sirte on the 16th. That same day, the local air unit, 60 Stukas and 20 Bf-1 also lands on African soil. Rommel at once orders new airstrips to be prepared closer to the front. Also on the 16th, the 1st Joint German and Italian push toward the British is ordered. The 3rd Reconnaissance Battalion, with its 2 armored car companies and 1 motorcycle company, together with the Santa Maria Column, which is a mixed group put together from the Ariete Division and 10th Corps, fielding a machine gun company, light tank company, 2 anti-tank platoons, an AA section, sappers, and 2 field gun batteries, sets off towards Sirte. Rommel is already going beyond limits because, far from simply occupying Sirte, Rommel orders his troops to go farther, to Nophilia, which is not even 160 kilometers from the British positions. They are on the road by the 17th and arrive on the 19th. On the 18th, the Luftwaffe increases its pace, and offensive action is carried out by night. But the Germans underestimate the dangerous weather conditions, causing some planes to be lost, and the rest to turn back. So El Agheila, Benghazi, and Tobruk remain safe for the time being. And that brings me to the end of this week. The 1st German and Italian units, moving in a defensive-offensive action, are heading straight toward the British lines. The first clash between the two does not seem far away, and with it, Britain and Germany will spread their conflict to a new continent. Rommel seems to be in good spirits about the future. On the 17th, he writes to his wife, "Dearest Lou, everything is splendid with me and mine in this glorious sunshine. I am getting on very, very well with the Italian command, and could not wish for better cooperation. My lads are already at the front, which has been moved about 350 miles to the east. As far as I am concerned, they can come now. But until they do, there are many open questions. Which British Army units will meet the Germans, and what condition? Will they be in? And this Axis force in Africa, will it perhaps be given a catchy name? Maybe we will find out next week. Heck, maybe the armies will clash. Who can see the future? Well, forget about those armies for just a moment and join the Army, because that is what brings you this series and all our other series. You can join the Army at timego.tv or patreon.com, and you will be glad that you did. Christopher Flynn is the Army's African ally this week, and these are the newest commissioned officers. Do not forget to subscribe. See you next time. Music. That is made very clear as Geisler will keep reporting to the head of the Luftwaffe, Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring. But Rommel has a direct line to Hitler himself, and I mean that literally. Hitler's chief adjutant, Rudolf Schmundt, is with Rommel right there. He is there specifically to show that Rommel has the Führer's favor, so Schmundt contacts headquarters at once. A couple of hours later, the first planes of the 10th Flieger Corps take off to bomb Benghazi. The German attack in North Africa has begun, and if some houses of important Italians are destroyed because of it, then so be it. Now it seems to me that Benghazi may turn out to be a key place in the logistics war, since it is a port that lies roughly halfway between British Egypt and Italian Tripoli. This may very well not be the last time the Luftwaffe pays a visit. Rommel has a lot on his plate over the next few days, but he is not the only one facing big disagreements. General Archibald Wavell, British Commander-in-Chief, in the middle. East also has a lot to think about. But unlike Rommel, Wavell is not facing a disaster that needs fixing, but instead the question of what to do next, with the success of Operation Compass in hand. Then again, just like with Rommel, in the end, it is not really up to him. On the same day Rommel is in Rome, the British Director of Military Intelligence tells the Defense Committee in London that the 23 German divisions now in Romania, along with 12 more arriving soon, almost guarantee a coming German invasion of Greece to support Italy. By then, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill has already said, "It is quite clear to me that supporting Greece must have priority after the western flank of Egypt has been made secure." Well, with that flank made secure through Operation Compass, Wavell is told in clear terms that Greece is now to come before all other operations under his command. Another change in Greece suggests that the new Greek leadership may also be more open to the idea of British ground troops being sent there than before. On January 29th, Greek Prime Minister Ioannis Metaxas dies. Metaxas had refused to allow any British ground forces into Greece to help against the Italians. He feared that open British involvement would likely also bring the Germans in, turning the Greco-Italian War into a side part of the larger European conflict, yet with German involvement now looking like a question of when, not if, and with Metaxas's successor, Alexandros Korizis, more willing to accept British help, not just RAF. Squadrons and supplies, but boots on the ground, the situation changes. While no official offer has been made yet, a meeting is set for February 22nd. Now, what does this have to do with the British presence in North Africa? Well, everything. By February 12th, Operation Compass is over. On that day, British High Command decides that all forces should stop and get ready for deployment. To where? To Greece. Of course. This does not sit well with all the commanders on the ground, though, especially Richard O'Connor, Field Commander of the Western Desert Force, or WDF, the British formation that carried out Operation Compass. In his opinion, this plan is reckless and needlessly risky. And his reasons are simple. The enemy cannot make any move against Egypt until they have landed a large armed force in Africa, right? And if they literally have nowhere to land, then Egypt's western flank is safe, not just for now, but for a very long time. Winston Churchill and British High Command disagree, with Greece needing more and more help and a German attack coming. Closer, the decision in their minds is also pretty simple. Many of the battle-hardened troops from Operation Compass are to head across the Mediterranean. And even if a renewed Axis attack is theoretically possible, it is not very likely, at least not in the near future. The information available by the middle of February, and it was clearly very limited, led General Wavell to believe that there would be no serious threat to the British position in Cyrenaica before May at the earliest. That judgment comes even though the British know German reinforcements are on the way. British High Command decides that no operations are to be carried out beyond the frontier of Cyrenaica, which should be held with the smallest possible force needed to protect the flank of our Egyptian base. So a skeleton crew is left to guard. The western flank and the WDF is stripped down. In Wavell's mind, this smallest possible force includes an armored force equal to one very weak armored brigade, working with 1.5 battalions of motorized infantry and 1 division of static infantry, with artillery support on about the normal scale for an infantry division. Part of this force will be the 9th Australian Infantry Division, replacing the 6th Division, which is headed for Greece. However, the 9th is not at full strength. It is also only partly trained, and it lacks Bren guns, signaling equipment, anti-tank, guns, and transport. Only 5 of the division's 8 infantry battalions had their full number of vehicles, and more seriously, transport at brigade level was so poor that the formation was almost unable to move. The 2nd Armored Division will also stay in North Africa, having arrived only in January. Some parts of the 2nd are still inexperienced from home, while others have gained some battle experience during Compass, but it will be weakened by the loss of one of its 2 armored brigades, the 1st, and of half of its support group, which will also sail for Greece. What remains, the 3rd Armored Brigade, is in less than great condition because of fighting during Compass and a lack of spare parts. All its vehicles had gone past their recommended engine mileage, making them likely to break down often. In addition, the 3rd Armored Brigade was below strength, with only 86 of its official total of 156 tanks, and it had to be given repaired Italian tanks. So, it is not a very strong force at all. As historian John Connell explains, this so-called division came to little more than one weak armored brigade, not fully mobile, and likely to wear itself out completely if it did much fighting. By the middle of February 1941, we are looking at between 12,000 and 15,000 British Army troops, at least on paper, guarding the western flank in Africa. However, with all the troops meant for Greece moving out and other units moving in, it will take a while before the British line is actually set and the troops are in place. While the British forces in North Africa are being replaced by less than ideal units, on the German side, the opposite is happening. In Tripoli, the first German units are about to arrive. On February 11, 1941, Erwin Rommel, the newly chosen commander of the German blocking force, whose job is to defend Italian Libya and its capital, Tripoli, from any British advance, arrives in Rome to talk strategy with the Italians. I'm Indy. Nadel, and welcome back to this World War II in real-time North Africa miniseries. I'm sure you are eager to find out what Rommel does today and how the situation on the ground develops. So, let's not waste any more time. Rommel needs to make sure that his opposite number, Italian Army Deputy Chief of Staff Alfredo Guzzoni, understands and accepts Rommel's orders from Adolf Hitler. We saw last time that Rommel met with Hitler and German Army Chief Walther von Brauchitsch. There, Brauchitsch made it clear that he and Hitler did not think much of the Italian performance in the war and were sending help and instructions. As Rommel notes, the Italian government should agree to take on the defense of Tripolitania in the Gulf of Sirte, area on a line running south from about Buerat, in order to secure the necessary space for the use of the German Luftwaffe in Africa. This was different from the earlier Italian plan, which had only aimed to hold the Tripoli defense line. The Italians accept the German change of plan. But speaking of the Luftwaffe, Rommel has another meeting. Later that afternoon, he meets with Hans Geisler, commander of the 10th Flieger Corps, the Luftwaffe unit stationed in Sicily to secure the airspace. Over the Mediterranean, bomb Malta, and now also protect supply convoys and support Rommel on the ground in North Africa. This meeting does not go as smoothly as the one with Italian High Command. Rommel wants Geisler to react at once to the latest British advance toward Tripoli. Just 4 days ago, Operation Compass smashed the Italian 10th Army, leading to about 130,000 Italian POWs being taken. Not only that, the operation also captured Benghazi and pushed even farther, finally stopping at El Agheila, a small coastal town in the southern Gulf of Sirte, only about 750 kilometers from Tripoli. Rommel fears the worst. It was possible that in the next few days the leading British troops could reach the outer edges of Tripoli. Something had to be done at once to stop the British attack. That something, at least in Rommel's mind, is for the Luftwaffe first to bomb the harbor of Benghazi that night, then pound the British column southwest of the town the next morning. Geisler refuses. And why? Well, Rommel is a newly arrived visitor in Italy and not a popular one, and the Italians have made Geisler understand how important it is not to bomb Benghazi. Too many important Italians, both military and civilian, own property there. Rommel is in charge of the German troops heading to North Africa, but he is not commanding the Luftwaffe units.